Greetings, Rebel fans. My name is Jason Kelly. This is the Let's Run podcast. I want to welcome you all to the show today. It is a dark Sunday, a really kind of a bummer weekend for UNLV sports as a whole. It started off, I was on Spaces Friday night, so I did not do a live show. I was having some internet issues at my home. But it started off with a very disappointing performance in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. The Rebels went up to Boise, Idaho. Obviously, there's not a ton to say about that game now, especially considering all of the news that has come out today concerning our head coach, our fearless leader, leaving us for Purdue of all schools. Certainly, today sucks. I wanted to wait to see. I wanted to watch the entire Eric Harper press conference. I wanted to see who they were going to announce as the interim coach. In the meantime, I wanted to, I just kind of wanted to let the news settle out a little bit before I went into the news today. Go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section here. You should be able to reply to this live stream. Put any thoughts that you have in there. I'll throw them up on the screen. Think of this as kind of a therapy session. Let's talk it out. Let's go over what happened, where we go from here, and what the future of UNLV football and really the UNLV athletic department. I don't think that this is just, obviously the focus is all in football today, but I think this is a big moment for this athletic department, kind of to decide what the future is going to be. I don't feel despair or anything. I was annoyed that it was Purdue. I genuinely feel like Barry is setting himself a little short in terms of where he ended up. I think West Virginia would have been a better job than Purdue. However, the advantage that Purdue has is the Big Ten does have a bigger media deal than any other conference in America not named the SEC. In fact, the Big Ten's media deal is pretty comparable to the SEC. And so Barry probably was offered more money by Purdue than he would have been from any of the Big 12 or ACC jobs that were open. North Carolina is still open. UCF recently rehired Scott Frost. I think the Big Ten, I think Barry wanted to go back to the Big Ten. I think if an SEC job if an SEC job would have been open, that Barry probably would have taken any SEC job. I had been of the impression that Barry Odom would not have left us for a job that kind of wasn't his dream job. But I genuinely thought that Barry was trying to angle his way back to Arkansas. Sam Pittman, the Arkansas coach, was kind of seeming like he was on the way out. And that's what I thought was going to happen. So I thought we were going to have another year of Barry Odom. I certainly did. We'll put if you comment on this, I will put up your comments and we will talk about it. Stickman with hair. Yeah, I mean, Barry Odom, the thing about it is, like, certainly a lot of seniors are graduating and we're going to lose a lot of players to the transfer portal here. But Barry Odom is leaving the UNLV football program in a far better place than he found it. It's not like TJ Otzelberger when TJ Otzelberger came to UNLV basketball and left that program just in absolute shambles when he left for Iowa State. Barry Odom is leaving the program better than he found it. And so for that reason alone, while I'm frustrated that it was to Purdue, I'm not frustrated with him for leaving. It makes sense. Clearly he had his goals and priorities. I think maybe he felt that I'll get into the reasons why I think Barry's leaving. Besides the money, obviously the money's the big one. Okay. So here's actually a big reason why I think Barry Odom is no longer a head coach, and this is from Vinny. Vinny is always on the show, so I appreciate you, Vinny. This team kind of had maxed out. Jackson Woodard's gone. Ricky White's gone. We have some young, a lot of our defense. Tony Grimes was a senior. I mean, Catalan's gone. A lot of the senior players on this team weren't going to be here next year, regardless as to whether Barry Odom was here next year. I think that Barry realized he was going to lose Brennan next year. I don't think there's any chance that Brennan comes back to I don't think there's any chance that Brennan comes back as our head coach or offensive coordinator. Brennan Marion is also going to be gone. And I think that at the end of last year, Brennan and Coach Odom probably looked around and said, we're going to give it one more go. We're going to give UNLV football the best year that we can possibly do that to give. And they did that. No disrespect to them, no hard feelings, at least towards Coach Odom. I got a little tired of Coach Marion by the end of his tenure, to be honest with you, by his offense. I don't think the Sluka situation reflected well on the school, and I think a lot of that you can lay at the feet of Coach Marion. But and like Jake Gifford here, appreciate you, Jake. Always a great guy. Make sure you follow Jake. Marion's gone too. He took UNLV off his Twitter bio. Will he follow Coach Odom to Purdue? I really doubt it. I don't think that Brennan Marion is going to go to Purdue. I think maybe Oklahoma State, maybe there's going to be good offensive coordinator positions open. And I think he's an offensive coordinator type guy. So yeah, the biggest reason why is I think Barry's gone, is he kind of maxed out with this class. Barry kind of jumped into the program about 2 years into a rebuild, or about 3 years into a rebuild. A lot of Barry's players, and certainly the ones that were the best players, were Marcus Arroyo players. Now, Marcus Arroyo could not coach to save his life. He could not. Marcus Arroyo could not communicate with people very well, but he was an okay recruiter. That's probably the only positive thing that I can say about Marcus Arroyo. And Barry Odom came in here. He saw an opportunity to take a program to the next level, and he took a group of junior and senior level players and gave it his best shot for a couple of years. And next year, if it depends on who we get and what their approach is going to be. But next year certainly is not going to be as talented, at least right now, unless we do incredible in the transfer portal, which is kind of a crapshoot. So I get why Barry left. I think he thought that maybe this was his peak at UNLV. I disagree with that assessment. I think that Barry could have taken this program even further. But Barry was kind of a placeholder. He saw an opportunity to get back into coaching at UNLV, and he took it. And I think he took the best job available to him. I don't think that North Carolina ultimately was going to hire Barry. UCF ultimately went with Scott Frost. Arkansas didn't open up. Barry probably saw this year and this success that he had and said, all right, I can parlay this into a big payday. I can do it right now. Or maybe I stick around at UNLV. I don't have as good of a year next year, and maybe I'm not as desired. And so ultimately, I think that's why Barry Odom decided to jump in now. He saw this, I guarantee going into the coaching cycle or going at the end of last year, he would have not have wanted to end up at Purdue. But ultimately he did. And so, there's no point in talking about him anymore. I would expect that most of the staff, if not all the staff, is gone, which means that we're going to lose a lot of our recruits. We're going to lose all of our recruiting, basically. Now, our new coach, whoever that new coach may be, and we will get into that, don't get me wrong. Our new coach, whoever that new coach is, will certainly have a good chance at retaining some players simply because players don't want to move. But you already saw, guys like Greg Burrell and Tony Grimes enter into the transfer portal. However, none of them said, I'm not going to play in the bowl game, from what I understand at this time. I think Grimes is going to play in the bowl game. He's a great Rebel. Appreciate Tony. All respect to him. Greg Burrell entered the transfer portal. That one makes me sad because I think that Greg Burrell is truly a great running back. And I kind of wish that he had gotten a lot of the Kylan James carries this year. And the transfer stuff is just going to keep coming. By the time the bowl game, and Hey Reb brings this up. Grimes is playing in the LA Bowl, and we're playing the LA Bowl against Cal. Not my favorite opponent. I don't think Cal is a big time opponent. I wish the game wasn't on a Wednesday. I'm still kind of deliberating whether I want to make the effort to go to that game or not. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I mean, and Vinny brings this up. We have to, we are not in a position, even like Boise State is, where we have multiple years of sustained success. We haven't built a true huge brand yet. Say what you want about Boise State, they do have a brand. People know who they are. They are the quintessential G5 Giant Slayer, and teams know that. Um, so we were not in a position where we were going to be able to keep Barry. That just wasn't going to happen. Um, Now, do I think that I do want to throw a little bit of shade to Eric Harper? Do I think that Eric Harper acquitted himself very well in that press conference that he gave earlier today? No. Being an hour late, showing up in jeans, I thought that was JV level stuff from our athletic director. I wasn't a fan of how he did that press conference. And to be honest, I most all of my frustration with the athletic department comes from how they handled the Pac-12 situation. Um, do I think that Barry Odom would still be our head coach if we had been if we had joined the Pac-12? Absolutely not. I think Barry Odom was probably just trying to get back to the Big Ten or the SEC as quickly as possible. And I think after what he did at UNLV, as bottom of a barrel job as Purdue is, he probably has some confidence that he's going to be able to turn that program into a respectable Big Ten program. And I'll be rooting for him to do so too. But what is the next step here? It looks like we're losing everything. Shearer, the defensive coordinator, he's gone. Barry's gone. Odom's gone. Marion's gone. Most of our recruiting is going to be gone. We're going to lose a ton here. But from what we know, the new staff, whoever they are, and I'll get into names later, the new staff, whoever they are, will have a good chance at recruiting people who already committed to UNLV. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to get all of them. It doesn't even mean they're going to get half of them. But they won't start from completely zero. There will be players who will see playing time opportunities at UNLV who are already here, who are good players for us this year, who stay here. That will happen as well. And if we hire the right guy, we can bounce back. We can. I believe in UNLV football, not because I believe that Barry Odom is the only person that can lead UNLV football to success. No, I think UNLV football is right now in a good place. Right now, it is a good job. It is a good opportunity. And as long as you make the right hire, Barry was great. We love Barry. We appreciate Barry. I have total faith that that UNLV football can rebound and become something great. Now, are they going to be as good as they were this year? It's going to be tough. They're losing a lot. The transfer portal, you never know. Players that you get that are seniors and juniors, you never know how good they're going to be. It's a lot of it's hypothetical. I would say that this, next year probably isn't going to be the dream type season that we have this year. Rebel Diehard, I think, sets forth, the standard for UNLV is a bowl game every single year. Next year, certainly, I would hope that they go at the worst, like something like 7-5 or 8-4. Are we going to compete with Boise? Boise's not going to be as good next year as they were this year, but they're still going to be really good. Don't get me wrong. And then after next year, we kind of jump into the unknown of whatever the new Mountain West is going to be like. And what I'll say is that whole saga with the Mountain West and the Pac-12, it's not over yet. There's still court things going on. It may look like we're going to be in the Mountain West forever. I don't know that that's actually true, although I still obviously was very upset with the way that we handled that situation. But there is no reason to absolutely throw up despair. Stickman says that Eric Harper did everything he could. I probably agree with that. I would like to know what number. I don't think the number that Barry is getting from Purdue has come out yet. If the number is 6 or above, I'll definitely give Eric Harper a little bit more grace because we weren't going to get to 6. 3.5 was probably our ceiling. As much as I wanted to say that we could pay Barry Odom $4 million, we probably couldn't. 3.5 was probably our ceiling. Hopefully it was at least higher than at least 3 or above. And so I want to see what Barry Odom's number at Purdue is. I would love to see what I would love for Eric Harper to come out and say, hey, this was our best offer. This is what we offered him. And we couldn't match it. I hope that Eric Harper is transparent in that process because I think it's good for fans to have a level of transparency. Masked Rebel, the OG here. Everybody make sure that you are following Masked Rebel. Um, yeah, we're losing everything. And it's all going to come down to this hire. So, with that being said, um, I guess I will kind of start a little bit into what kind of coach UNLV should look for as their next hire. I'll kind of throw out some dream scenarios, the order that a coaching search should take. The first thing that you do in a coaching search is you try and swing for the fences. You make the calls. You you call. People have made jokes about John Gruden. um, Given the relationship between the Raiders and John Gruden, I think that that's not going to happen. If I would still call him though. Call John Gruden. Why not? Swing for the fences in the first 24 hours. Uh, Eric Harper stated in his press conference that he's getting calls from good coaches all over the country, from current coaches and from past coaches and from NFL coaches. And I actually believe that. I think people, because of what Barry did at UNLV, I think they see UNLV as a more positive job. Um, I don't think that Spencer Danielson in Boise. I'll say this, Stigman with her. I don't think that Spencer Danielson in Boise is going anywhere. He was kind of the. I mean, this isn't quite fair to say, but I felt like their offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter, was kind of their de facto head coach in a lot of ways. And Danielson was more of a spokesperson for that team than the driving force of it. But Danielson will have a huge year next year. I don't think he's going anywhere from Boise. He's kind of a true blue Boise person, and I think that they'll probably keep him forever. But again, I don't know that he's like some great coach either. I just think that Boise has a really talented team and the best player in college football. So these are a couple guys. Correa and Carmack are guys that we're going to want to keep. Caravan, I don't know what you mean. Are you talking about the brigade? We will do a Twitter space tonight. The Burner Brigade will take place tonight. Any Rebel fan that wants to come on and talk, I will be hosting it, but I won't be doing the primary. I'm trying to get all the talking out right now. I won't be the person that's doing most of it. So if any Rebel fan wants to come on, we will have probably the Reno Hater, Masshole, Masked Rebel, I imagine, will probably make an appearance, although, that's up to them. And we will kind of let the fan base talk it out, but I wanted to make sure that I got out a Let's Run podcast just to discuss this. And so back to, what you do in a coaching search is you start by swinging for the fences. The names that I would call I would call Bill Belichick. Everybody's making jokes about this because, the greatest football coach of all time is like 70 years old. Like, it's not going to happen, right? Call Nick Saban if you want to. Call everybody. Swing for the fences. Those things aren't going to happen. And I'm sure that maybe there's fans of other teams watching this right now because this is a massive live stream right now. But make the call. Go for it. Call NFL coaches. Call Bill Belichick. Call Nick Saban. I'd call John Gruden. Call the craziest name that you can imagine in the first couple of hours and float it out to them and see kind of where their heads are at. I'm sure there's names that I'm not thinking of. If anybody has any names in terms of like crazy home run kind of unbelievable hires that would bring crazy publicity, go ahead and put names that you want in the chat and I'll talk about them, as we go. And then we'll talk about it a little bit more tonight too. That's step one. Step two is Ed Orgeron. Yeah, this is a name that I would call. I would call him. Why not? Robert Saleh. I probably wouldn't call Robert Saleh. Mike Vrabel, I would definitely call him. Heck yeah, call Vrabel. I would call Ed Orgeron. Why not? Although I do think he'd be a little bit of a disaster in Las Vegas. He was a party animal at LSU. And imagining him in the city of Las Vegas would be pretty wild. So I don't know, but I'd call him. Why not? I mean, I'd take him as our head coach. The publicity alone would probably be worth it. And he has shown that he can coach. So why not? Robert Saleh, no. Swing for the fences. The next step is take an inventory as to Choate. Yeah, I would. I'm gonna say Reno can keep Jeff Choate. Not a big fan of Mr. Chode up there in the north. Um, the next step is take an inventory of who has reached out to you. I think a lot of times we think that coaches are a little distant with, when it comes to moving around and they're a little professional. And Barry Odom was talking to people from Purdue for months. He was talking to people from places all over the country. These coaches are reaching out and calling schools like UNLV, gauging interest, gauging possible salary. There are coaches who are contacting UNLV who are good options. Take an inventory of all of those names, list them from best to worst. Then you check who is not on that list that you want to be on that list, the people that didn't reach out to you proactively. This is where you look for previous head coaches of Power 5 programs that are currently not coaching, who aren't kind of the Ed Orgeron or the, who aren't kind of that class. But this is where you look. Is Brian Harsin on your list? Now, I have been the one advocating for Brian Harsin. If you don't know who Brian Harsin is, he was, and I'm sure most of you do, he was the head coach at Boise State from 2012 or 11 to 2020. He took them to a Fiesta Bowl. By all accounts, an excellent coach, a great recruiter, the kind of guy that could instantly come into UNLV and do similar things that Barry Odom did. He was a proven winner in the Mountain West, and that's who I would hire. He went to Auburn after Boise State, and it was a complete and utter disaster at Auburn. And I think a lot of that is because he had a bit of a harsh personality. He's a disciplinarian. He is you don't mess with him. But if you wanted my name that I want as our new head coach, the answer is Brian Harsin. I think that's the guy that I want. He had a crazy winning percentage in Boise. And that's the name that I would go for. Ultimately, sorry about that. Ultimately, will they go for a name like that? I don't know. I'm sure the name will be talked about. I don't know how far that name will get along in the process, but if you trust my opinion, which I feel like Harsin is expected to go to Cal. So this is from Brady Clark. Okay. This is from Braden Clark. He's a Utah State guy. I haven't seen the Cal Harsin stuff, but I would not be surprised if that's the case. Again, like that's just a name that I threw out there. No idea what will actually happen. Okay. So CBS Sports is reporting that he has emerged as a candidate for the offensive coordinator job at Cal. I would hope that UNLV could outdo that, giving him a head coaching job. I figure that's a better position than the offensive coordinator at Cal, but I digress. I think UNLV could have a chance at competing for Harsin's services, but that's what I would do. You look through that list of names and you pick out the best ones, and then you try and make sure that the names that you want to be on that list are on that list. You gauge the interest. And then from there, you start narrowing down the candidates. You talk to them about their vision. You see who's actually serious about joining the program. Another guy that people have really liked is Nick Rolovich, I believe is how you say his name. He is a head coach. He was the head coach at Washington State. Had a bit of an issue during COVID and ended up leaving that program. That's a name that I would look at. But what you do not want to do, and what I would tell the administration is no coordinators. This job, I think, and this is my faith in UNLV as a job. This job is too good for a coordinator. If you weren't going to give the position to Marion, there is no coordinator in the country that I would want unless he was a coordinator that already had coaching experience. Not that specifically a guy like Chip Kelly would be who you would call. I'm not saying that, but somebody who, like Chip Kelly, had coached before and had become an offensive coordinator. That's the kind of guy that I'd be okay with. But if it's just an offensive coordinator who doesn't have head coaching experience, I don't think that's the name that you want to go for. So I hadn't seen that Harson Cal thing. I hope that doesn't work out, but if it's being reported like that, it probably will. That's disappointing. I mean, UNLV, I think, has to. I, I, I feel like our athletic director is always a step slow on these kinds of things, and so I hope that he's being proactive right now and making 1,000 calls. I hope he's not sleeping. I hope he's not at Cracker Barrel. I always make a joke that he's a Cracker Barrel, which apparently some people think is insensitive or weird or something, but whatever. So you narrow down the candidates and then you begin interviewing. Now, what does the timeline look like for this? The Rebels are playing in the LA Bowl on December 18th, so approximately 10 days from now. Harper said in his press conference that he wanted to have that coaching process done in less than 10 days. That would mean having your head coach hired before the bowl game. It is Dell. What's his name? I can't remember his last name. He was our wide receivers coach. And he will be the offensive coordinator. So Dell Alexander, sorry. Dell Alexander will be the interim head coach during our bowl game against Cal in LA. He's not a serious candidate for the head coaching position. I think that they chose a person that would, you don't want an interim coach that you don't want to hire to win that game and then all of a sudden become your head coach. So Dell Alexander will be our head coach for the LA Bowl. Will UNLV have their head coach chosen before the LA Bowl? I think so. I think that you will see a head coach chosen early next week. I think this is going to be an entire week of coaching choices, of coaching possibilities. We're going to have lists of candidates being put forward by basically everybody, including myself. I haven't had time to put together a concrete list yet, but I will, in podcast this week, be talking about who I think is going to be the next head coach of UNLV football. But I need to, Rich, is that Pit Boss Rich, the guy that looked like a pit boss on the Raiders sideline? He's hilarious. I don't think I'd want to hire him, but he's hilarious. The home run swing is probably Ed Orgeron. The more that I think about that, the more that I think about Ed Orgeron, the more that I think that UNLV actually might make a call to him. Well, that might be a horrific mistake. Ed Orgeron was certainly not the hardest worker in his last couple of years at LSU. So timeline, I would expect early next week to be when we would get the head coach. I think we're gonna have a full week here of searching. I hope they can get it done faster than that. Wednesday or Thursday would be good. And Run and Masshole brings forth the best. See, the problem, Masshole, is that Edward Wilson, and if you don't know who Edward Wilson is, he is quite possibly the most consistent and dedicated Rebel fan who gets very upset all the time. Edward Wilson is already going to be coaching the basketball team next year. So Edward Wilson, the incredibly angry Rebel fan who we all love and respect and appreciate, I think he's going to be busy coaching in Kevin Kruger's spot. So that's the timeline. I think early next week at the latest, late this week at the earliest. Expect big swings. You're going to hear some big names put out. I think with Brennan Marion, taking the UNLV stuff out of his bio, we're probably not going to see a bunch of Brennan Marion stuff, which is good. If you watched our offense in that Boise State Mountain West Championship game, I think that maybe the go-go offense ran its course at UNLV, which is sad because I really like Brennan, but that Matthew Sluka situation, I don't think the school wants to hire him. Our limit is not going to be $1.75 million for this hire either. Utah State spent $2 million on Bronco Mendenhall to get him out of New Mexico. I would expect us to spend more than that. I would say the floor is probably around $2.5 million, depending on who the coach is. If it's a bigger name, it could be 3.5, probably the max, or 3 at most. But 2.5 is probably the floor. I think that the Bronco Mendenhall selection and contract that he got from Utah State will kind of act as the baseline for our new head coach, or at least it should in negotiating. If I was a head coach at UNLV, if I was interviewing for the job, I certainly wouldn't want to take anything less than $2.5 million. So that's about it for right now. Um, Sad day for Rebel fans. I know it sucks to lose. It sucks to lose Barry, um, but ultimately he did exactly what we could have hoped him to do. I want to make sure that I'm not missing any comments here. Barry did exactly the most that we could have hoped for. He left the program in a better place than he found it. Am I frustrated with him for leaving, especially for Purdue? Absolutely, but I don't think that Barry did anything um, completely unclassy. It wasn't a protracted process. Uh, Having the announcement on Sunday gives the school time to get into the new coaching staff search. Another name maybe that you guys might want to look out for. This name was sent to me uh, by somebody kind of close in the situation. Is Kyle Flood? He was a head coach at Rutgers for a while. That could be a name that we could look out for. But hire Doug. What do you mean by Doug? Like Doug Peterson, like the NFL coach, maybe. Oh yeah, sorry. Call Urban Meyer too, just for the heck of it. Call him. The casinos would get behind Urban in a second. Not and listen, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But give him a call. Swing for the fences at first, then organize, then start narrowing it down. And if there's a name that you want that's not there, call and make them feel wanted. Tonight around 7:30, we are going to be doing a space. I hope everybody can jump on and talk about this a little bit. Okay, sorry, Massel jumping on there with Vinny. So tonight we're going to go about 7:30 for the space. If you guys want to do it earlier, go ahead and DM me. I'll be on there. If anybody has questions for me, they can ask. I'm going to, snoop around. Again, I am not a reporter. If anybody thinks that I'm a reporter, I'm absolutely not. I'm just a guy with a Twitter who loves UNLV sports, who doesn't have time to do any sort of reporting on the team, but just loves to cover them in podcast form. So, yeah, but give him a call anyway, right? Call Nick Saban. Why not? What do you have to lose? The worst Nick Saban can say is no. Just call him. Why not? Vegas is a big enough city and a big enough entertainment center that I think he'll probably take the call. I mean, I don't know if the call will last more than 30 seconds, but a guy like Nick Saban will probably take the call. I want to ask some people what they think of Ed Orgeron. I don't know his interest to get back into coaching, but and please hope that the Cal thing with Brian Harsin falls through, and because I think that's the guy that you'd want to take as your head coach. If he's already kind of logging, like if they're reporting that he's going to be the offensive coordinator at Cal, I'm guessing the school doesn't agree with me in my Brian Harsin opinion, which makes me sad. But this coaching hire means everything. Are we going to take this positive momentum that we got from Barry Odom and throw it off a cliff and then take a whiz on it and then light it on fire, or are we going to use this opportunity that Barry Odom gave to us and let it propel UNLV athletics into the future? Is the Pac-12 stuff over? It isn't. The Pac-12 stuff is not over. Conference realignment is not over. The Pac-12 and the Mountain West are both in a standstill right now. The Pac-12 added Gonzaga. The Pac-12 added Gonzaga. The Mountain West added UTEP and Hawaii. But both conferences are kind of sitting in a standstill right now. So if you think the Pac-12 Mountain West saga is over, it isn't. It's most assuredly isn't. And there are people in the athletic department that will tell you that the goal is to get to the Big 12. I'll believe that when I see it, because I do not believe that whatsoever. Sure, there may be a person in the Big 12 that would like to have UNLV, but you'd have to actually get voting on behalf of all the university presidents in the Big 12. I think it has to be unanimous that they're going to revenue share with another G5 school after they've already added like 3 G5 schools. That's not going to happen. Now, could it happen? Could I be wrong? Fine, it could. And if I don't want to go too much into the Pac stuff, into the Pac-12 stuff, but the Pac-12 is a better conference than what the new Mountain West is going to be. There is not a person watching this video that would try and make the argument that it's some sort of lateral move, because it's not a lateral move. Once the Mountain West kind of disintegrates and those schools leave for the Pac-12, the Mountain West becomes a worse conference than the Pac-12. So it would be a move up from the conference that we're going to be in to a better conference. But it doesn't. I don't think. I think that the athletic director and the school administration is kind of in their feelings about that. I think they're kind of set on that, and so I wouldn't expect anything about that major unless there's some crazy development with the lawsuit between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 that's coming up. But that is all for now. Swing for the fences. Call Ed Orgeron. Call Brian Harsin. Call John Gruden. Call Urban Meyer. Call whoever. Call Bill Belichick for all I care. Make the calls right now. See if you can land one of the big fish. And then tomorrow when those calls, or even tonight when those calls don't go well, because, let's be honest, those things probably aren't going to happen. Start narrowing down your list. See who's contacted you. And there's going to be a whole bunch of people contacting you who you immediately don't want. Get rid of those names off the list. And let's start interviewing people tomorrow and Tuesday. I want to see reports or whispers from inside the halls of UNLV that we have candidates on campus by Tuesday, and hopefully they can have the coaching hire announced before the bowl game, because the portal opens tomorrow, and really they got to book it. So I appreciate you all. By far one of my biggest streams ever. Times are not lost. It's not over for UNLV football. If they make the wrong hire, obviously it is. But when you're a program that's, is in a position where Power 5 conferences are going to poach your coaches, you have to prove that you're beyond one coach. You have to prove that your program has serious momentum and staying power beyond a single coach. And this is a test for UNLV. It came a year earlier than I hoped that it would, but it's here. And so we're going to see if we're a serious football program right now, or if we're kind of a Bush League team. So 7:30 tonight, that's the plan for the Spaces. I appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your Sunday, a great week, and let's run.